All right, I see that Ms. Ware is here as well.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like Commissioner Miller has joined us. All right. Um, we are just beyond the 7 o'clock hour. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and get our regularly scheduled November Planning and Zoning Commission meeting started. I am Sean Atkins, Chair of the East Point Planning and Zoning Commission. And at this time, I call the meeting to order. Staff, would you please sound roll call to establish a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Mark Fields,
Present.
Commissioner Presley,
Present.
Commissioner Fan, Commissioner McKnight,
Present.
Commissioner Lovett,
Present.
Commissioner Bryant, Commissioner Bryant is logged in. I will ask him to unmute, and Commissioner Joseph Fields.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Solomon. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please join me in a moment of silence. And as you do so, if you would please think of those who have lost loved ones and those who have lost lives in the turmoil that is happening not only in the Middle East, but in our own country, in parts of Africa, as well as in Haiti and other islands in the Caribbean. So if you would please just join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Commissioners, at this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the minutes as presented.
Okay, that's
Second.
the agenda. That's the agenda, Commissioner Lovett. We're adopting the agenda, correct?
The agenda as presented. Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Presley's your second still stand.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams, could you please put your phone, your device on mute?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we've got a motion by Commissioner Lovett, a second by Commissioner Presley that we adopt our agenda as presented. All in favor sound aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 19, 2023 meeting minutes. Commissioners, did you all get your minutes for October 19?
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, sir.
Is there a
Second.
second? It's been
Second.
moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner McKnight, that we approve our October 19, 2023 meeting minutes. All in favor sound aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. Our October 19, 2023 meeting minutes are approved. There's nothing for us to consider as it relates to old business this evening. So that takes us to new business. We have 3 cases for new business. Each of these cases, 2 of which are special use permits, one is a text amendment, will require a public hearing. At this time, I will read our rules for public hearings. They will apply to all 3 cases. Public hearings before the Planning and Zoning Commission shall be conducted in accordance with Section 10-2219 of the East Point Zoning Code and Development Regulations. As we continue to meet virtually, I am asking each participant, other than commissioners and staff, to mute their devices. Once we get to parts of the agenda that require public input, those who have notified staff of their desire to speak will be recognized to speak. If you did not notify staff but desire to speak, please use the raise hand or chat function to be recognized. Public hearing rules are as follows. Persons both favoring and opposing the proposed case will be provided an opportunity to address the commission. The applicant for the zoning case or the applicant designated representative, if any, will be entitled to speak first, followed by other speakers in favor of the proposal for a total of 15 minutes. Those who oppose the proposed zoning case will then be permitted to speak for a total of 15 minutes. By majority vote, the commission may increase the total time of speakers, provided that each side is given the same amount of time. If there is more than one speaker per side, the chair or the presiding officer may limit the time allotted to each individual speaker other than the zoning applicant. The zoning applicant may reserve a portion of his or her allotted time for rebuttal. Speakers must adhere to the rules of the quorum. Prior to speaking, each speaker shall identify him or herself and shall state his or her current address. Each speaker shall speak only to the merits of the proposed zoning ordinance under consideration, shall address remarks only to the commission, and shall refrain from making personal attacks on any other speaker. The presiding officer may refuse a speaker the right to continue if, after first being cautioned, the speaker continues to violate the rules of the quorum. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard our rules for public hearings. Our first case this evening is 2023U as an umbrella -001-09. Staff, would you please sound the caption for this agenda item?
Chairman Atkins, in reference to new business, case number 1, case number 2023U-001-09, the applicant Ernesto and Elaine Williams, property located at 4225 Ben Hill Road. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to continue the building process for a habitable accessory structure in the RL Residential Limited Zoning District. Case type is a special use permit.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Miller,
I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
is there a
Second.
second? It's been moved by
Second.
Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Presley, that we open the public hearing for case number 2023U as an umbrella -001-09. All in favor sound aye.
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 All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now open. Our applicants, Ernesto and Elaine Williams, are you present this evening?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the floor is yours. Mr. Williams, if you would state your first and last name and your current address, you may proceed with your presentation. And if you
Ernesto,
need, I'm sorry, just one second. If you need screen sharing capabilities, if you would let staff know that now, and they will go ahead and give you those capabilities.
I do.
Yes, sir, you have the capabilities to share your screen this evening.
Okay, let's see if I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, are you guys able to view my screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, my name is Ernesto Williams, and I live at 4225 Ben Hill Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30349. And I'm building an accessory structure for my kids who currently live in the basement of my home. And I'm building a small house for them in the back of our property. And we're trying to get through, I guess, the city's procedures in order to get it started. First, I want to bring up this is what was given to us, I guess, what the staff recommendation was. And let me see if I can get some of this, okay. As you can see here, the recommendations for us to build the home were that we met all these criteria and the minimum lot size is met. The total square footage of the ADU should not exceed 50% of the floor of the principal structure. Now, in this, the staff recommendations here, they put that well, they were under the impression that our main home is 2,400 square feet, but the main home does have a completed basement, and I will, let me just show where we can resolve this first issue here. Our house was, we did a refinance last year on the house when the interest rates were a little lower. So we have an appraisal done. This is the bank's appraisal of the property. And here, let's see. If you see here, it shows what the first floor dimensions are, 2474.2, and the finished basement is 2287.1, which makes the total square footage of the home closer to 4,600 square feet, where before staff was only counting the first floor, which is the 2,400 square feet. So they told us that the ADU could not be any larger than 1,200 square feet. The total size of the ADU is 1,800 square feet, which is a lot less than what could be built based on the total square footage being closer to 4,600 square feet. This shows the dimensions of the basement here, if that's needed. But it shows that the basement does have a living room, kitchen, breakfast area, bedroom, bathroom, den, keeping area. And this is the 2-car carport that's attached to the house. So hopefully this is enough information to clarify the first objection. The second objection was the height of the ADU. So we had a person that does drafting come out and draft the side of the house, and this is what the total height of the ADU came out to. Let's see. Here. The total height of the ADU came out to 23 feet, 11 inches, based on the dimensions that were measured. The total height of our main structure, we were told that the ADU cannot be taller than the main structure. The total height of the main structure is, as there was no other way of doing that except with, my wife and I actually did it ourselves with a tape measure. But as you see here, this is me measuring the top to bottom of the first level of the home. And that measurement came out to, we wrote them all down here. The main house is 13.8 inches on the first level and 8 feet on the second level. Well, here it is, 13.8 inches and 9 feet on the second level. So the total of the main house is 22 feet, 8 inches, which is about 4 feet shorter than the ADU. I mean, not 4 feet, 4 inches shorter than the ADU. Now, the third complaint that the city had was that the building material was not consistent with the main home. And I took a picture. This is a picture of the main house here. See if I can blow this up. And the main home is brick and siding. And this brick used to be white, similar to what's down here. We had the house painted a few years back, and it's now gray brick, and we painted the siding gray to match the house. The proposed material that we're going to use on the ADU, this is the closest we could find to the brick that's on the home, and we can still paint this brick gray, and the siding, which is be similar siding to what's on the house now. It comes in this color, but then you have to paint it. So we'll do the remaining portion of the house in siding and just paint it gray to match the main structure. So the only thing that we basically were not in compliance with was the height of the ADU compared to the main residence, which is a difference of about 4 inches. But I did want to show something else here. This is our property here. And as you can see, there are no neighbors. And I'll also show a street view where the ADU is not visible at all from the street level. So this is the property. And all of this land here is now owned by Microsoft. These homes are no longer here. Microsoft owns everything back here. And what they're building there is 2 structures that are each over 350,000 square feet. So eventually, where our homes are here, are going to look just like this in our backyard. All of this is going to be covered with warehouses, basically. From the street level, I have a picture of the street view. This is the street view from our house. The ADU is back there, but it's not visible from the street view. It sits a lot further back. Our house itself is close to, I would think, about 100 feet, if not more, from the main road. And the ADU is another 60 feet from behind our home. So if we go back to the map here, the ADU is roughly being built here where the tree line is, at the end of the driveway back here underneath these trees. So it's not visible from any property except this neighbor here, which he's been our friend. I mean, he's our neighbor for over 10 years. And he, we've spoken to him plenty of times, and he, definitely didn't object. Matter of fact, we did the neighborhood participation, what we sent out that was required by the city. We notified, I think it was over 150 residents in the area, and no one had any issues, complaints, or, concerns about what we're doing in our backyard. And let's see if there was any other questions. Well, at this point, are there any questions from staff or anyone?
Okay, during this time, Mr. Williams, we do not have questions. This is the public hearing. This is your
I'm sorry.
presentation time, and you're being timed. So
Okay.
we have no questions at this point. It's a public hearing.
There's one last thing that I did want to show that I think one of the staff members mentioned that this property was located in residential L. This property is located in here. Residential R3, which based on the zoning, you could actually do all of these things from the property, including multifamily, daycares, so on and so forth, because it's considered more of a main roadway and not a enclosed type neighborhood. I believe those were all the questions that were presented to me, so that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor of the zoning matter? Any other proponents here to speak in favor of the zoning matter? Hearing none and seeing none, are there any opponents here to speak against the zoning matter? Any opponents? Ms. Solomon, could you see if there are any attendees who have dialed in? And if any of those are here to speak to the case for 4225 Ben Hill Road, please?
Absolutely. Caesar Mitchell Jr., are you here to speak for or against the applicant this evening?
I am here for the next application. I'm with Denton's Law Firm. Thank you very
Right.
much.
No problem. Thank you. R. Tyson, are you in favor or in opposition of the case presented for this evening? Mr. Chair, that concludes the attendees for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant. There were no other proponents to speak in favor of this case, and there were no opponents here to speak against the case. At this time, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Presley, that this body closes the public hearing for case number 2023, U as in umbrella -001-09. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. Staff, would you please sound your recommendation? And before you do that, staff, I would like for the record to reflect that we have been joined by Commissioner Joseph Fields. Commissioner Fields, could you please unmute and just sound present?
Present.
Thank you. If you could lower your hand, please. Thank you. Staff, the floor is yours.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and I'm sorry, one more second, okay? We had also wanted to make sure that we got, for the record, Commissioner Bryant. And I see that he is now unmuted. Commissioner Bryant, could you please sound present for the record?
Yes, present.
Okay, thank you so very much, Commissioner Bryant and Commissioner Joseph Fields. Staff, I'm sorry, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chairman Atkins. In reference to this case number of 2023U-001-09, a special use permit, a property located at 4225 Ben Hill Road. The applicant Ernesto and Elaine Williams. The zoning is residential limited. Next slide, please.
All right, there we go.
The current zoning map, as stated, residential limited. The future land use designation is growing residential. Here's a property survey, land survey of the property. Here's a site plan of the property. And these are site photos showing the two-story habitable accessory structure currently under construction in the backyard. These are other photos of the property. Here is the proposed habitable accessory structure. And this is a section of the code, habitable accessory structure, section 10-2130, accessory use and structure standards. There are 12 or so standards that we have to look at when conducting an analysis and reviewing the case. As stated by the applicant, minimum lot size, the applicant reaches that very well. The property is a little over an acre. The total floor area cannot exceed the 1,235 square feet. That's the minimum standard. The proposed principal structure, as stated on Fulton County's Q Public, which is where we provide where we are provided with information dealing with all properties in the city of East Point through the Fulton County tax assessor's website, shows the principal structure being 2447. We were not aware or didn't have any additional information from the applicant stating that there was improved basement space at that time. So with the information that we have, that's how we came to this particular application being not in compliance with the total floor area measurements. The side setbacks are fine. Separation of adjacent properties appears to be fine based on the site plans that we have. There appears to be more than enough more than enough. It tends to meet the maximum structure space, maximum heated floor area for the habitable accessory structure. This is dealing with just coverage in general, whether it's covering more than half of the total area of the parcel. And obviously it's a pretty large parcel, so they're in compliance with that. The minimum of 3 unobstructed parking spaces, they appear to have plenty of space and driveway space, a 2-car garage plus a driveway. So they're in compliance with that. The habitable accessory structure must only have a kitchen because the property is not yet complete. If this application was approved, this particular item would need to be a condition because the proposed habitable accessory structure is not a completed structure yet. The maximum height of the habitable accessory structure. So the ordinance says that the maximum height cannot exceed 35 feet or the height of the primary structure. And as stated by the applicant, the proposed structure is due to be about 4 inches higher than the primary structure. So they would not be in compliance with this particular requirement. Perhaps a variance application. Our staff would not be at liberty to provide any type of administrative authority for 4 inches. So the next one, aesthetic compatible, based on the information and the photos that we saw, we did not deem it architecturally compatible. And then this last one here, habitable accessory structure cannot be built before. This is not applicable, so they're in compliance. And based on this information, the applicant is requesting a special use permit to continue the building process of a habitable accessory structure, because it appeared that the building process started prior to the applicant receiving the proper permits. However, staff recommends to deny the applicant's request based on the items submitted to staff for review. The proposed habitable accessory structure is not in compliance with this section 10-2130. So staff has recommended to deny.
Okay, thank you, Director Smith. Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant and we've also heard staff's recommendation. At this time, I will entertain a motion. Let us not all speak at once, commissioners. I must understand and hear everything that everyone has to say.
I motion that we follow staff's recommendation in lieu of the ordinance.
Okay. Okay, so Commissioner Presley, your motion is to recommend denial. Is that correct?
Yes,
Commissioner-
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second? That motion fails for the lack of a second. Commissioners, I entertain a motion for this agenda item.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner McKnight.
I would like to make a motion for approval with conditions. The conditions is based off of the list that was showing.
Okay.
Let's see. Can you go back to that screen for me?
Yes, I can. Please give me one moment to figure this
11.
screen out. Thank you.
So the conditions would be that they provide another plan so that the roof line meets within that 4-inch range so that it wouldn't be higher than the main structure. What's the other one that they did not come?
It was the building materials.
Oh, the building materials. Well, it looked like the building materials were the same based off the presentation. So the condition would be that the building materials are similar to the primary structure. And I believe that's it, right?
They are, let's see here, they're your conditions. Commissioner McKnight, it looks like there was a no on how will accessory structure must have, oh, the kitchen. There's a kitchen issue.
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
so the kitchen, so that'll be number 3, that the kitchen, no more than 1 kitchen in the structure.
right. And the minimum height, I have accessory structure. Okay, we addressed that. Aesthetically compatible with, okay, we addressed that. Okay, so we're gonna have to write these conditions so that they are able to move forward and are specific. So, so condition number 1 would be to bring the total height of the accessory dwelling unit within the maximum building height allowed by code. That would address the height of the primary structure and must use building materials that are compatible with those of the primary structure. Must, and number 3 is must include only 1 kitchen and must include only 1 kitchen. Commissioner McKnight, did I sound those to according to your wishes for the conditions?
Only the must include only 1 kitchen. I think it should be, because let's say they don't want a kitchen in there, should not exceed 1 kitchen, right?
Well, if we say shall not exceed 1 kitchen,
Mhm.
technically they could have 0 kitchens because 0 kitchens would also not exceed 1 kitchen.
Okay, so they
That's
have
why,
to, okay,
yes,
all right.
must include. Okay, so the first I said, bring the total height of the accessory dwelling unit within the maximum building height allowed by code. That is number 1. Bring the total height of the habitable accessory structure to the allowed height in the zoning ordinance. Okay. Must use building materials that are compatible with those of the primary structure would be number 2. Okay, all right, those are the conditions. Commissioners, there's been a motion to recommend approval with the 3 conditions as stated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner McKnight, seconded by Commissioner Miller. And I have a few questions. these questions would be of the applicant as well as staff. Mr. Williams,
Yes,
if you're on, okay.
I am.
Yes. I think that what I heard is that the lower part, in terms of height, I'm going to height, and I want to make sure that I have this correct. The lower part of your structure, you said 13 feet 8 inches, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then there's an additional 9 feet, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that gives me a total of 22 feet 8 inches. And you said that the habitable accessory structure, please correct me if I'm wrong, is 23 feet 11 inches?
Yes, my wife and I measured, but the person that that did the drafting of the unit itself, he measured it a little bit higher because he measured from the ground, where we measured from the top of the floor because there's going to be a concrete slab there, for the porch. So we were measuring from the top of the entrance, not from the ground, where the contractor or whatever he is, that does the blueprints or whatever, he measured from the ground up to the top.
Right, which
Of
is
the
how
roof
you
line.
measure your house too, correct?
So, well, our house, there's already a concrete pad where our house is.
Right, but you measure from the ground up to the top, to the peak of the
Right,
gable.
but we measured from the concrete pad because we don't have ground. Our house is on, surrounded by concrete. So, but he measured from the actual ground and not where the concrete is. If I can show you a picture, if you don't, you can see
If
the
you would,
difference.
please.
Hold on one second. I'll show you. Let's share the screen one more time. Here. Okay, my wife and I measured from here,
Okay.
which is the top of the slab,
Right,
where the contractor measured from the ground up.
right.
But
Which is,
this is going to be a front porch, so this is actually going to be concrete up to this level.
okay. The fact that it's going to be a front porch would be a moot point because that slab gives it height. And we're talking about measuring the height. So for instance, if that slab were 1.5 feet or 2 feet for your porch, we cannot negate that. Do you understand? That's a part of the height. It's pushing your structure.
No, but the structure is already there. So he's measuring from the ground to the top of the structure, but we're measuring from the slab to the top of the structure. So it's a shorter distance. So in other words,
the distance from the top of the slab
right
to the top of the building is shorter.
Exactly, because of the slab.
That's my point. Exactly.
Right, but he's measuring from the ground, which is making the structure taller.
Exactly, because it is tall.
Okay,
because it's sitting on that slab. That slab is a part of the structure.
No, but he's okay. If I understand what you're saying now, but that's actually would work in our favor if we looked at it that way. Because in reality, our house, even though it's shorter in height from the ground up, actually sits up higher because our house sits on a hill as compared to the ADU. Right. But if you measure both houses from the ground up, then the ADU is 4 inches taller, but is that a lower elevation than our main house is?
Right. But so I don't know if the code speaks to topography. Okay. So that's a different thing. The code speaks to the height. the structure is, the slab is a part of the structure. So must be included in that. So the point that I'm getting to is that when I heard you say 23 feet, 11 inches, it sounds like it's actually higher than that.
No, that's from the ground up, but from the slab up is 23 feet 4 inches. I mean 23 feet even from here
Okay,
going up.
okay,
It's yeah.
okay. So, all right, the condition is that it's got to be in compliance.
It's the same or lower. I understand.
Exactly. Okay. And the other thing is that staff has this property in a zoning district that's RL, residential limited. And I heard in your presentation, you're contesting that, stating that it is R3.
Yeah, well, that's what the tax assessor's office shows. So I'm not sure who's right and who's wrong, but this
Okay.
is the tax assessor's office. Let me just show you that.
And that may have changed. You can go ahead and pull that up and I'll just ask staff. For this particular zoning district, did we change that zoning from, and I think that it went through a zoning change when we were doing an assessment of residential districts across the city. Can you verify that, please, Director Smith?
See right here.
The zoning district of this property is residential limited. And we always try to educate the community on the zoning. Zoning is determined by the city of East Point. Although we receive tax information, parcel identification numbers, addressing, many details of the property, as far as how big the property is, how big the parcel is, that type of information we verify from the tax assessors of Fulton County. Zoning is very specific to the jurisdiction, and it is always determined by the city. It has always been determined by the city of East Point. So any type of property class or zoning information, the tax assessors have different classes. They actually use zoning for their practical purposes, and it's just not the same thing as what is determined by the city of East Point and what is adopted by the city of East Point in our zoning map and our zoning text ordinance.
All right, thank you. I just wanted that to be sounded for the record, that it is in fact an RL zoning classification for the area in which the structure is located, the subject area.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And that is all I have. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Lovett at this time. Commissioner Lovett, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two questions. One, maybe just clarification for me, and maybe I got it mixed up. But was there a statement from staff that the structure does not mirror the main house? There's some differences in is it the style, or is it the materials, or what makes it not, the two are two separate looking buildings? That's one thing. And then the other thing I had a question about is the word compatible. Compatible means two things are not necessarily alike, but they have conditions under which they operate to make them similar. They have some of the same characteristics. You know, one thing is compatible to another, but it's not the same. For an example, to me, cinder block kind of is maybe compatible to brick, but it doesn't mean that you use cinder block. So there has to be another word rather than compatible. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And Commissioner Lovett, just so that I'm clear, your narrative around compatibility, is that for condition number 2? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So we can take a look at that before we move forward and see if we can get a friendly amendment to that. I thought I saw another hand.
Sorry, but what about the way the two buildings
Okay, that's a,
look or structure?
and that's a question of staff. Is that correct? That was a part of staff's presentation and you're asking them to speak to
Yes,
that?
that is
Okay.
correct, to clear that one.
Okay,
So the compatibility requirement speaks on the architectural style as well as the material, as well as similar colors. And based on the rendering and based on the existing primary structure, it did not appear to staff that those two items were compatible. And so that's how we determined and why we determined that he was not in compliance with that requirement.
If I could do a screen share one more time.
Mr. Williams, okay, the public hearing is over. And first of all, in order to speak in the meeting, you would have to be recognized and you were not. And the public hearing is over, so we don't allow the public to just speak. You have been able to speak since the public hearing has been closed because you've been asked direct questions. But at this moment in our meeting, it's not a dialogue. But if a commissioner would like to ask you to expound on that, they would have the ability to do that. Okay? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Lovett.
so the explanation that Director Smith gave is what I thought I heard. So in terms of the list that you have, does it speak to that on that, the conditions?
It
Or-
doesn't, it speaks to the materials, but not to the style, Commissioner Lovett. So do you have a friendly amendment, a condition to add to this? And then we can go through the process to see if the maker of the motion would accept the friendly amendment to add that.
I do not know how to word that because it really gets down to the architectural piece of it and the structure that has already gone up. So I don't know how to fix that.
Right, but now I want you to keep in mind that there is a structure that has been built and it has been built without the authority or the issuance of a building permit or a special use permit. And
that's
so what I would say to you is that that should not limit a condition that you would like to place on this this motion.
Well, I would add the condition as this, and that is one of the conditions has to be that the habitable structure has to, and we can reword this, has to mirror the architectural
Style.
of the original home.
Okay. The motion was made by Commissioner McKnight. Commissioner McKnight, would you accept that as a friendly amendment to add that condition?
Has to mirror the architectural style of the principal structure. The only question or concern that I have with it, it does look like the style is more modern. On the primary structure, it has like, you know, it has brick. It has look like the concrete siding, but the style with the little holes in the brick, like that was a little bit older. So I think having that might limit it to having the the older style design of the brick. You could bring up on a picture. I think they have it in there. The building material, if you use brick and hardy plank siding, that'll be in the same color of the primary structure. That might be one way of addressing the concern that Commissioner Lovett has.
Okay, so.
Just using the material with brick and hardy plank siding.
Okay. So based on that response, you're saying, and correct me if I'm incorrect, that you're not accepting that as a part of this motion as a friendly amendment. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think this is, since we're in the discussion stage, I just want to, that was my only concern for it. If we said it has to mirror the architectural style, that little area, they may not want that on a new home, you know.
Okay. In order for us to add this condition as the maker of the motion, I will have for the record to have you say that you will accept it as a friendly amendment or no. So there are a few things. So if there are enough commissioners who feel compelled that it should be, because the fact that the structure has been built without a building permit where these things could have been addressed before should not influence a condition that the commission would like to place on the motion. So if there are enough commissioners, then they can say, well, yes, we'll vote this down. And then another motion can be made and that can be added. So if you don't feel like you want to add it to your motion because you're the maker of the motion, then you would have to say you do not accept it as a friendly amendment. And then therefore I won't have to ask Commissioner Miller if his second still stands, and then we'll just continue to move on.
Okay, let me see that. I don't think it's going to hurt. I also don't necessarily think it's necessary, but if the body, I mean, so you can add it, that's fine.
Okay, all right, so
Unless,
Commissioner Miller, would your second still stand with that condition added as a friendly
Chair,
amendment?
my second still stands.
Okay, thank you. So the habitable accessory structure must mirror the architecture style of the principal structure. Okay, I will now recognize Commissioner McKnight. I have your hand still up, and then I have, okay, so now I have Commissioner Fields, and then I have Attorney Wiggins. Commissioner Mark Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it just got worked out what my question was and concern. The picture of the habitable structure looks very different than the present home. And so I was just trying to figure out, can you go all the way to the top? There you go. So there's no brick or anything there. So it seems to me that they still could at least mimic parts of what the existing structure is. The only other question I have, and it's just really for my knowledge, is I believe we asked, how did this get this far along without the permit? And I'm still trying to understand what prompted the builder to decide to get a permit after we've gotten this far. There was no stop work order. How did the builder get this far without knowing that the permit should have needed? How was he notified?
Okay.
Thank you.
Staff, do you have information regarding sort of the chronological steps in terms of what happened and how this got built without a building permit or a special use permit?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Solomon, you're recognized.
Thank you. This case, well, the builder started to build the habitable accessory structure. The applicant came in and realized that no permits were pulled, so we started to begin this process. So code enforcement hasn't been out to the property, and we are in the process of helping the applicant through the process of getting a habitable accessory structure through the special use.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, the owners hired a builder to do this, and the builder started building, and the owner, I guess, perhaps inquired the builder
Yes,
and then realized that there were no permits and then came to the city.
yes, and if possible, Mr. Williams can correct me if I'm wrong, but he did come into the office to have a pre-application meeting to get this figure out the right way and to be in
Okay.
compliance.
Okay, and Mr. Williams, is that the scenario? Is that what happened? And how this structure has gotten out of the ground and framed and to the point where it is now?
That's correct, but the one
Okay.
thing that I did also want to mention is that
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
the drawing, I mean, the picture that's in that you guys are viewing, that
Okay.
was an okay.
Okay. Yes, the reason I'm going to stop you is because I think you're going to go back to something that had to do
Yes.
with a condition that we just went over. And let me just explain a little bit why I'm stopping you. In this case this evening, we did not have any opponents to this, right? But in instances where there are opponents and proponents, if you continue to present your case, then we're back in a public hearing. So we would then have to give the same amount of time to the opponents as well. So that is why we only allow those from the audience to speak if there is a specific question asked by either the commission or the chair allows the staff to ask the question. So I can't have you to continue to present your case because that has happened already. Again, a commissioner could ask you a very specific question about that, but we can't go back and reopen the public hearing. It's closed at this point. So I wanted to make sure that you did answer the question about how the structure got to where it is now, and I appreciate that, but I can't go back and address another question because it was not asked specifically of you. And the rules were read, and we will abide by those rules. Okay. Mr. Williams, if you could lower your hand, I'm now going to recognize Attorney Wiggins.
Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner McKnight might have touched on it and just want to make sure that the code does not require that color be in consideration. I did not see in your conditions anything regarding color, just materials and then the compatibility of the style.
Yes, we did not mention color as a condition. To your point as well, obviously those things are temporary, and we would need to have at some point some type of aesthetic zoning for that, and have already established a color palette if there were a covenant for a planned neighborhood, but there isn't, it seems. So yes, we have not mentioned color. We just talked about architectural style and building materials. Does that answer your question, Attorney Wiggins?
It does. Thank you. I just recall from the presentation from both staff and the applicant about the gray, I guess, color on the principal structure. But no, you answered it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, commissioners, there's been a motion made by Commissioner McKnight and a second by Commissioner Miller that this body recommends approval with the 4 conditions as mentioned. Condition number 1, to bring the total height of the habitable accessory structure to the allowed height in the zoning ordinance. Condition number 2, must use building materials, brick and hardy plank that are compatible with those of the primary structure. Condition number 3 must include only one kitchen. And condition number 4, the habitable accessory structure must mirror the architectural style of the principal structure. If there are no other comments, questions, or concerns, Attorney Wiggins, I see you still have your hand up.
Let me lower it.
Okay, all right. If there are no other comments, questions, or concerns, a motion to recommend approval made by Commissioner McKnight, seconded by Commissioner Miller with the conditions as stated. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it, the motion carries. For the next agenda items, there are 2 remaining on the agenda for this evening. They are for the same address, 2441 Main Street. I am going to read the case number for both of those items, and because they are for the same address, I will then entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Case number 2023, T as in Tom, A as in Apple -001-10. And I've just changed my mind. One is a text amendment, so I'm going to open separate public hearings. So commissioners, at this time, I will ask staff to sound the caption for this agenda item.
Thank you, Chairman Atkins. In reference to new business under item number 2, case number 2023 TA-001-10, the applicant Todd Shoemaker. Property is located at 2441 Main Street. The applicant is requesting a text amendment to the CR Commercial Redevelopment Zoning District to add the use of automotive training facilities as a special use permit item. Case type is text amendment.
Okay, thank you. And with that, commissioners, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing for 2023 T as in Tom, A as in Apple -001-10.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Wow.
Second.
Wow. I think Commissioner Bryant was one of those voices to make a motion to open the public hearing. Is that correct, Commissioner Bryant?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then I heard Commissioner Miller for the second. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now open. The applicant is showing as Todd Shoemaker. Is the applicant present this evening?
I am here representing Mr. Shoemaker.
Okay, excellent. If you would state your first and last name and your current address, the floor is yours. If you need screen sharing capabilities, if you would just sound that, we'll have staff to give you those capabilities for your presentation.
Excellent. My name is Alana Gutierrez, and I represent Automobile Training and I'm with Dentons. And yes, I will need to be presenting, and my presentation will touch upon both subjects in one. I know you mentioned that they would be treated separately. Is it okay if I continue with the same PowerPoint?
You can continue with the same PowerPoint, but the focus is going to be on the text amendment, and then we will close this public hearing and open the one for the special use permit.
Okay, absolutely. I'll just jump to those slides.
Okay.
Just 1 minute. Okay. Can we see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So today our client wants to amend this for the purpose. Sorry, let me find my notes. Okay, so the proposed use is distinguished from a regular automotive garage by centering it around vocational and technical training. And a little bit of background. Initially, the client applied for a rezoning to industrial. Planning staff did not support that rezoning and instead suggested an alternative, which was a text amendment and a special use permit. The client is on board with planning staff's alternative and has now applied for a special use permit and agreed to work with planning staff in the text amendment. But it should be clear that the only application the client applied for is a special use permit, because we know that the only body that can officially propose the text amendment is city council or city administration. Our client is, of course, willing to work with planning staff and has proposed the following language for planning staff to consider and support the text amendment, but procedurally, our client cannot be the applicant for the text amendment. But the language that our client is currently proposing reads as is displayed on the screen. We just want to be able to describe the automotive trading garage as a permitted use and explicitly specify for it to be a use primarily for vocational and technical training in a full range of automotive repairs and services, including major overhauls, including paint and body work, and the outside storage of unlicensed and unregistered vehicles would be prohibited in order to satisfy the requirements of the regulations. Again, this would make a little bit more sense in context because I do need to kind of explain the background of the client, the applicant. And it all just is working together. But I guess our point today is that we do not want to give the impression that we are the main applicant for this, because we know that procedurally that would not be correct.
Ms. Gutierrez Torres, I want you to understand that you got, for proponents, there's 15 minutes total on each side. So if you feel that you'd like to continue with your presentation, that is completely up to you. You have the ability to do that. And then you can do the same thing or however you'd like to present, even for the next case, which is the special use permit. I don't want you to feel that you are restricted. I want you to feel that you can present what you think is best to present your best case.
Absolutely. Well, for terms of the text amendment, as I mentioned, what we are focusing today is just to, for the record, make it very clear that we know we cannot be the applicant to move forward. Our client just wants to work with whatever body necessary to facilitate the process and get the special permit approved. And in order to do so, the best course as proposed by staff would be to amend the text. And because of that, we are proposing this language, but of course we are open to working with staff.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
For this
okay,
side,
all right.
yes.
Excellent. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor of this case? Any other proponents here to speak in favor?
Mr. Caesar Mitchell was here earlier. I'm unsure if he still is online.
Thank you. I was going to have staff to ask for those that have called in as well. Staff, if you could please go down the list of the callers that we have present this evening to see if there are any proponents here to speak in favor of this application.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mr. Caesar Mitchell, are you here to speak in favor of the applicant this evening?
Yes, thank you very much. Caesar Mitchell with Denton's, Alana Gutierrez and I are partners at the firm, and we represent the client. And I think Ms. Gutierrez has made the case, and we certainly will follow your Mr. Chair, your decision to bifurcate the presentations and the public hearings. So I have nothing further to add at this time. Thank you very much. No.
Okay, you're welcome. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor of the zoning case, the text amendment?
R. Tyson, are you here to speak for the case this evening? In favor of the case this evening, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, we do not have any more attendees for this evening.
Okay. Well, I must ask, are there any opponents here to speak against the zoning case? Any opponents to speak against?
R. Tyson, are you here to speak against the zoning case before you this evening?
Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, commissioners, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second? It's been moved by
Second.
Commissioner Lovett, seconded by Commissioner Miller, that we close the public hearing for case number 2023, T as in Tom, A as in Alpha dash 001 dash 10. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. Staff, would you please sound your recommendation for this agenda item?
Yes, if we can only get one person to share their screen or stop sharing the
Okay.
screen share option,
Ms.
please.
Gutierrez, could you relinquish? Yes, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I believe I'm stuck. Give me 1 second.
Staff recommends a 30-day deferral for cases number 2023 TA-001-01 and case number 2023U-01-10 to allow for the information we received from the applicant on Tuesday, November 14, 2023, to be presented to the Planning Commission work session and regular meeting. Staff needs to review the new information provided to complete staff analysis and recommendation.
Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant regarding the text amendment for 2441 Main Street. And we've also heard, from the applicant and from staff. So at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I think I closed the public hearing. There was Commissioner Lovett.
Oh, I am so sorry.
So this is, so this is a motion on the actual case.
Motion to, with this recommendation for a 30-day deferral of the case. So motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay, so your motion is to defer?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Is there a second?
There is a second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Commissioner McKnight and a second by Commissioner Miller that this body defers this text amendment for 2441 Main Street for 30 days. Well,
It's for both cases.
next regularly scheduled commission meeting?
So motion to defer, would it be for both cases since that's the recommendation now? Or are we just going to motion to defer with the first case at this moment?
So because we have not had the public hearing, because I bifurcated those, it would be
Okay.
for the text amendment.
Okay, so motion to defer the text amendment
Okay, for
to the
regularly
next-
scheduled December meeting?
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner Miller is your second stand?
Yes, it does, sir.
Okay. Comments, questions, or concerns, commissioners?
I have a comment.
Okay, Commissioner Joseph Fields, you're recognized.
Thank you. How are we going to proceed as far as getting the city council to offer text amendment?
Okay, So as I mentioned in the work session last week, so if the council would like to have a text amendment for this case, I would imagine that as the legislative and governing body for the municipality, they would instruct the city manager, which is what I would imagine. And I'm going to ask Director Smith to chime in, because if I framed this incorrectly, I would like for her to correct. If it is the desire of the council and the mayor for this text amendment to move forward, I imagine that they would instruct the city manager, who is charged with the day-to-day operations of the city, who would then charge the department to draft and to amend the text for presentation to this body. So, Madam Director, if you would please correct me if I've not framed that correctly or if I've left out any steps.
I believe you have framed it correctly.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Fields?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lovett, you're recognized. If you would please lower your hand. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just have questions for just clarification. So if the text amendment allows this, what happens to the overlay plan, number one, and number two, what happens if they move in and then they move out, but the text amendment is still in place?
Okay.
Then the next person comes in, they can use the same, I mean, the text amendment would that stop with this applicant, or will it just transfer or stay in place for that parcel?
Okay. So that parcel, I'm going to have staff to respond to this, but it's currently already zoned CR. And the text amendment would then, I believe what they're seeking is to add that the use of automotive training facilities, which is very specific to that zoning classification, with a special use permit as a special use, which would require a special use permit. So it would apply to not only this area, but wherever there is a CR zoning classification. And staff, I want you to go ahead and chime in. Again, if I have framed that incorrectly, if there's anything you need to add, and you can also respond to the other questions of Commissioner Lovett.
It appears that you framed it correctly. And what was the other question? I'm sorry, Commissioner Lovett. What was the second question?
What does this do to the overlay plan for that parcel?
It has no impact on the overlay plan. Just to give a little bit of history, I know I was out for some of this case, but have been brought up to speed to some aspect of it. And based on the history of the case, I mean, you all are aware that it came through for a rezoning, and this board recommended denial of that case, as did the staff, based on the use and what was presented and what they were trying to do with the facility. Once it got to the city council, there were many advocates and supporters of this type of project. Many of the community members and council found the proposal very compelling, even though it was not compatible with our really any of our ordinances, going all the way back to just the overlay district, the downtown overlay district area. It's not compatible with the zoning district. It's not compatible with the comprehensive plan. So we had to, as staff, recommend what we recommended based on those policies that are in place. Moving along, you know, council and the community, they're like, oh, this is a great idea. Let's figure out, you know, how we can make it work. And so that's when staff was charged to work with the applicants to see if there was a path for them to get to council that did not hinge on of being incompatible with all the policies that are in place. That in no way changes how staff feels about it, and it may or may not change how you feel about it. But, we were charged to work with the applicants to come up with the best way to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community to move forward with it, where council may or may not feel comfortable with the solution or with the path and with the option that staff came up with. How it would impact the overlay district, I mean, it just depends on what conditions are placed on it. As far as if it is approved for it to be for the definition to be added to zoning definitions, for it to be added as a use in the CR district. And you are aware of this, that when many special uses are added to that section, they have requirements and criteria points that they have to meet in order to comply. That would be the place where staff would make recommendations and put criteria on architecture, put criteria on outside storage, put criteria on hours, put all types of criteria points on what we would deem protecting the health, safety, and welfare, and then integrity of the entryway into the city's gateway. I mean, we're just going to be very intentful and meaningful in what we do and how we review this text amendment, and how we review the special uses, and how we review the criteria points that we may add to it once we've had the opportunity to review the new information we received over the last 2 days. That's the best way I can answer or respond to your question.
All right. Thank you, Director Smith. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Lovett. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. I'm going to recognize Commissioner McKnight.
Yes, and this is a question for staff. Looking at the recommendation for this text amendment, knowing that the applicant can't, really have a text amendment, should this even be should this part be a deferral, or should it be a denial? Or that's maybe not necessarily for staff, maybe it's just more for Attorney Wiggins, considering the situation in this particular case. Because at the end of the day—
Mr. Chair, should I answer?
Yes. Attorney Wiggins, you do have—
No, go
No.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was going to respond.
you wasn't
I was just going to
finished.
say a portion to that. So Commissioner McKnight, your question, and correct me if I'm not framed it correctly, is should this be a denial versus a deferral? It can
for
be.
For the text amendment, because at the end of the day, it's presented as the applicant making the text amendment. So, that can't necessarily happen anyway. So should it even, for the text amendment, is it a moot point for us going back for changes?
Well, I think that the verdict is really still out on how the code reads as it relates to who can initiate a text amendment. And
Okay, it's that part.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Attorney Wiggins, you can respond to that. And to your other question, the other part of your question, Commissioner McKnight, the motion can be whatever you feel the motion should be. So staff is only giving us their recommendation. If you feel that it should be a denial versus a deferral, then that motion is an acceptable motion. It would need a second for us to move forward with it. But there, I do not believe, are limitations on what those motions are. It would just have to have a second in order for us to move forward with it. And I will ask Commissioner Attorney Wiggins if she would like to respond to any portion of the question that you have.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Commissioner McKnight, the verdict is not out for me so much so because I've interpreted the code that it specifically states that the legislative body, who's the mayor and council, they are the governing body who has the authority to make text amendments. Not that they're the only body who can be an applicant for a text amendment. And I know the attorney for the applicant wanted to make a distinction, but I think the distinction is clear that no individual, not the staff, not the commission, not the lawyer, we do not have the legislative power to change a text, but anybody has the ability to bring an application. There's no language that specifically disallows the public from bringing an application for a text amendment. I contrasted that with other cities that I do work with that have the explicit language that text amendments are can solely be initiated by the city. That doesn't exist here.
Okay. All right. Commissioner McKnight, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And thank you, Attorney Wiggins, for the response. So there has been a motion to defer the application for a text amendment to our regularly scheduled December meeting. That motion was made by Commissioner McKnight, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Are there any other comments, questions, or concern? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor sound aye.
Aye.
All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. This application is deferred to our regularly scheduled December meeting. Commissioners, public hearing for 2023 U as an umbrella -001-10. Application address is 2441 Main Street also. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner McKnight, seconded by Commissioner, was that Miller or Presley?
It was Miller first.
Okay, second by Commissioner Miller. All in favor sound aye.
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 All opposed sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. And so, Ms. Gutierrez, do you need screen sharing capabilities again?
Yes, I will, but I believe I still have access, so.
Okay, great. The floor is yours. If you would state again your first and last name, and even though you're with Denton's, just give the address for Denton's.
Yes, absolutely. My name's Alana Gutierrez, and the address is 303 Peachtree Street Northeast, Suite 5300, Atlanta, Georgia 30308.
The floor is yours.
Good evening, commissioners. Again, my name is Alana Gutierrez, and I'm here to discuss my client's request for a special use permit in relation to the property located on 2441 Main Street. This site used to be zoned industrial back when the structure was built, so it is a legally non-conforming structure. Currently, the proposed use that our client wishes to introduce is not allowed. This is a photo of the building back in 2008 before it was rezoned to commercial redevelopment and before the adoption of the downtown overlay in 2021. As you can see, not much other than the color has changed. Section 1014-009G of the downtown architectural overlay points to the non-conforming lots, uses, and structures section of the zoning ordinance for dealing with non-conforming structures. And the aforementioned section in the zoning code states that non-conforming structures are allowed to remain as long as other regulations as permitted uses are followed and there's no enlargement, moving, or destroying of the structure. Here, we intend to keep the structure as a whole and only repaint and bring it up to code. Single-use buildings are allowed in Tier 1, and all other regulations of the downtown architectural overlay are related to building design, which would not be applicable to this non-conforming structure. Thus, the only remaining issue is the use on the site. Even though the proposed use is not specifically listed amongst the permitted uses, we believe that the proposed use fits with the purpose of the commercial redevelopment district. It is an innovative and functional use that provides a commercial service while also having an institutional use. The Automotive Training Center has a great purpose of educating and mentoring at-risk youth, and with the side benefit of providing the citizens of East Point the service of affordable vehicular repairs. And the citizens of East Point agree with the benefit. As staff mentioned, we have received nearly 50 letters of support from East Point residents, business owners, and supporters. This is an image of what we are presenting. I already showed you guys this. And to answer a question that was brought up recently, the special use permit, we are proposing the following conditions. We want it to be conditioned on the site plan granted to our client alone, and we would limit the storage of outdoor vehicles just to maintain it tidy. And also to answer another issue that was arisen, all of the new information that we presented was only our interpretation of the code. We didn't really present any new information recently. For that reason, we would really respectfully request that you recommend the approval special user permit. We would really like to see this move, as our client has had this in session for a really long time, and it's been stopping architectural permits and just pretty much everything that he needs to get the ball rolling on this great project. So with that, I hand it over. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other proponents here to speak in favor? Staff, would you please ask any of the callers if they're here to speak in favor of this zoning application?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mitchell, are you here to speak in favor of the zoning case before you this evening?
I am here in favor. I have nothing to add to Ms. Gutierrez's presentation. Thank you very much.
No problem. R. Tyson, are you here to speak in favor of the case before you this evening? Mr. Chair, we have no more attendees.
Okay. Are there any opponents here to speak against the zoning application? Any opponents to speak against? Hearing none and seeing none, commissioners, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing for 2023U as an umbrella -001-10.
Motion to close the public hearing, Mr.
Is there
Chair.
a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner McKnight, that we close the public hearing. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The public hearing is now closed. Staff, would you please sound your recommendation?
Chairman, again, in reference to this case, staff has recommended a 30-day deferral of case number 2023U-001-10 to allow for the information received from the applicant on Tuesday, November 14th, to be presented at the next planning work session and regular meeting. Staff needs time to review the new information provided to complete the staff analysis and recommendation. And I just do want to state for the record that this property is not a legal non-conforming use. The property lost their grandfathering in July of 2023. And I just want to state that for the record.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we've heard from the applicant and we've also heard staff's recommendation. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Let us not all speak at once.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
I make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation of a 30-day deferral for the case.
Okay, is your motion that we defer for until our regularly scheduled December meeting? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Lovett, that this body defers this case until our regularly scheduled December meeting. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? I'm sorry, Commissioner Joseph Fields, are you?
Yes, I did want to say something. Does that mean that the next time we meet on this particular case, we're going to have a recommendation from the council concerning the
No, sir. Let me just stop you there. No, sir. It would be inappropriate for a council recommendation as a part of this process. As a quasi-judicial body, the council is a political body, the legislative body for the city. So council's opportunity to weigh in on the case is once this body disposes of the case. But the recommendation, we don't get a recommendation to come back. We get a recommendation from the community, we get a recommendation from staff. Those things come before us, and then we dispose of that case, and then our recommendation for this particular case, because we're not the final arbiters, would then go to council.
No, that much I understand. I'm just trying to say that we really can't do anything on this case as far as the text amendment is concerned until we have it properly presented to us coming from the council, since they're the ones that can actually make recommendations for text amendments. So I'm assuming that between now and next month, that this particular thing is going to happen.
Okay, so I'm going to have Attorney Wiggins to speak to this again, because the way that the attorney who staffs this commission interprets the code is a bit different from that. And she did state that, Commissioner Fields. And and I also believe that if there is going to be a text amendment coming from the city, I think that that is altogether a different application, which would then require different advertising. So there's some other legal components to that, but I will allow Attorney Wiggins to speak to that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fields, that is correct that if the city staff, if the council wanted to apply for a text amendment, they would go through the process explained earlier, have the city manager task the planning and community development staff to draft what they want to see, making it a city-sponsored or city-initiated text amendment. That's not what we have. We have an applicant initiated and sponsored text amendment, which is fine. And you do not need the city council to weigh in prior to them receiving the recommendation from this board.
Well, that's clear, but I just wanted to make sure that the next time they come here, we're going to have a clear-cut ability to act on the text amendment, because it'll be properly presented. And I just wanted to make sure that that's going to happen. That means, going through whatever procedures that's necessary in order to do that. And I just wanted to make sure that that was understood by all. That's all.
Yes, sir. So the text amendment is properly presented now, right? It's properly presented as it came forward with an application, I guess, some weeks or months ago. So the issue is not who presented it. I think the staff is recommending deferral so they can dig further into the proposed language that the text amendment is seeking, to ensure that, because once you approve and the city council approves this text amendment, it would apply to the entire district, right? The entire zoning CR district, which does in some areas impact the overlay, right? And so I think staff is recommending deferral so that they can evaluate, analyze the proposed text amendment and how it would impact anything that language would touch.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Wiggins. Commissioner Fields, does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Need to make sure next month we're not going to have the same problem because it's got to be presented. In other words, in order for us to move forward on the text amendment, it's got to be properly presented from, like we said in the beginning. I just wanted to make sure that those steps will be taken between now and then.
No, that is not what the attorney just said, Commissioner Fields. And Madam Attorney, you can correct me if I frame this incorrectly. The attorney's interpretation is that, yes, the legislative body of the municipality has the power to enact text amendments. It does not say, we do not have language within our code that says that it is the only body, that the city is the only body that can initiate a text amendment. So text amendments, we are not the final arbiters for text amendments. So they do go on to mayor and council. They would have the power vested in them then to approve and enact a text amendment. But we do not have anything in our code that states that a different applicant cannot initiate a text amendment. So it was, as the attorney presented, when you say it wasn't presented properly, I'm not understanding that part. What part?
I didn't say it was improperly presented.
I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
You say that. I mean, I understand that we cannot, it's going to be deferred tonight because the applicant, although they're requesting a text amendment, it's got to move further up the line so that it can be acted upon by the authorities who have the actual power to do that, since the applicant doesn't have the power to do that. And I just wanted to make sure that as we move forward, like next month, these things will be in place. That's all.
Okay. That is, yes. Commissioner Fields, that is not correct. What you just stated again is not correct. And I'm gonna ask Attorney Wiggins if she would explain it yet again, but that is not correct, sir.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So Commissioner Fields, the application was submitted properly. I think I understand that you're wanting to make sure that if we defer it, that it is before you and some motion will be made to vote it up or down. And what I'm saying to you that is the goal, is that the next time it comes before you at your next commission meeting, staff would have had the time to analyze the application for a text amendment to determine whether or not it fits the criteria that they must use with any application we get, right? So it's no different. They will take the same steps in analyzing this application like they did for the special use permit that we heard for the ADU. They're going to look at it, analyze it, and make a recommendation. They're only asking for time to do that. That's it. And they need the 30 days or until our next meeting to analyze that application, just like they would analyze a special use permit, a rezoning, and any other ask that you guys vote on. Does that make sense?
Well, no. So that means that when they come back next month, they're going to have all of the time necessary to go into and delve into this application, that we can actually vote it up or down and says, yes, we can accept it if we want to.
That's right. Exactly. That's what they are asking you for, time to delve into it, read the language that was that the applicant is requesting, and provide you with a staff recommendation, just like they do with any other applications. That's exactly correct.
Okay, so then we can act on it.
You will be able to act on it.
That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And we could have acted on it this evening as well. The motion was to accept the deferral to give staff that time. So, and it sounded like there's a bit of confusion and ambiguity about the owner of the application. So I have a question. Ms. Gutierrez, I know that you're on mute. I know that you are standing in for your colleague. And so maybe this will help just clear up. For case number 2023, T as in Tom, A as in Alpha -001-10, which is the text amendment, did you or your colleague actually complete the application for that text amendment and offer the language for that text amendment? Did someone from Denton's do that on behalf of your client?
Our stance on the text amendment has been under the understanding that we are not able to be the applicant.
Okay.
Based on that, I will have to lean towards the side that we did not do that.
Okay, so staff, who actually completed the application for the text amendment?
The applications were completed by Todd Shoemaker. My computer is currently freezing on opening up the application document.
Okay.
But the application was turned in by Todd Shoemaker, the applicant.
Okay, all right. So that's what I was trying to get to. Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Thank you, Ms. Solomon. So Mr. Shoemaker made the application, Commissioner Fields. And so what our attorney is saying is that the application for a text amendment does not have to be initiated by the city because we do not have language in our code that says that it is solely the city's ability to do that. There are other municipalities that do, but we don't. So it was presented before us correctly. We could have acted on it tonight. We could have voted it up or down tonight. Ms. Solomon, you still have your hand raised. Okay. The motion is to defer this to our regularly scheduled December meeting. This is case number 2023 U as in umbrella -001-10. This is the special use permit application for 2441 Main Street. I'm going to recognize Attorney Wiggins.
I am so sorry to belabor the point, but based on what the applicant's attorney has stated, I must ask, if they are not saying they're the applicant, then do we have one? Because the staff is not bringing forth a text amendment. That is not their desire. And it's my understanding the city manager has not tasked them to bring forward a text amendment. And so if that's the case and the applicant is not, I guess, pursuing the application, you know,
Right.
I'm not sure what you guys are voting on.
Right. So I'm going to call on Ms. Gutierrez.
Yes, today what we are seeking is a special use permit. That is our main request today.
Okay. But in order for there to be a special use permit, the use has to be allowed. And the use is not currently allowed. So the text amendment would have to precede the special use permit. And so there were questions around who actually submitted. I think that there are some questions around who actually owns this application for the text amendment. And it sounds like your client, Mr. Todd Shoemaker is your client, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, according to staff, Mr. Shoemaker actually submitted the application. And you, Ms. Gutierrez, representing Denton's, is representing Mr. Shoemaker, correct?
We were representing Automotive Training Center, yes.
Okay. Is that not Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes, but to a
Okay.
representative capacity. Because yes, what we were understanding is if we move forward today with a special use permit, then the question of the text amendment would reach city council, who would be able to then decide on that because we were under the impression that they're the ones who would need to move forward with bringing a text amendment.
Okay, but that will be the cart before the horse. So we could not even vote to approve a special use permit for a use that's not allowed. And so in order to get the use to be even an option that's allowed within the CR district, we would have to amend the text. And so this would be, okay. Yes. Okay.
One more thing, sir.
Yes, Commissioner Joseph Fields, you're recognized.
The reason that I brought up my objection to the process, my inquiry into the process, because we can't put the cart before the horse. And there's no clear delineation as to who's going to bring this text amendment so that it can be properly acted upon. And so I'm glad this was just cleared up. That was my concern when I asked the question in the first place. So that seems to me there's a lot of work to be done on the submission for this text amendment, because without the text amendment, we can't have a special use.
That is correct. And that is why the text amendment is number 2 and the special use is number 3 on the agenda, because we have to do one before the other. I'm going to call on Attorney Wiggins.
So, Mr. Chair, this is gotten complicated unnecessarily. If Denton's Shoemaker Automotive, I'm so sorry if I don't recall the name of the company, if they are not pursuing and not owning the request for a text amendment, we can dispense with that application because we don't have one then.
Okay. And so I'll ask Mr. Mitchell. I've asked your colleague, Ms. Gutierrez, so if you could explain. So is Denton saying that they're not the applicant for the text amendment?
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner McKnight.
Yes, that was my question when we were actually on that particular case regarding the text amendment. But since we were already moved past that one, and on this case, because we've already deferred whatever we would recommend for the text amendment portion. So right now we're on the actual application for the use. So I feel like right now we're still talking about the text amendment, but we've already moved past that particular line item, right?
We have, yes.
Okay, so in order to give the applicant and staff time, if I'm hearing things correctly tonight, staff is asking for another deferral to give them time, and also probably also for the applicant so they won't have to reapply again while they work through this. So by the time we have our next meeting, either we have the text amendment already or we don't, and we make a decision that way, and then go ahead and move forward. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Sorry for the noise.
No worries, no worries.
Right.
Mr. Mitchell, I had called on you because you still have your hand raised. I had asked the question about the text amendment based on the question that Attorney Wiggins had. Did you want to add something to that?
No, in fact, Commissioner McKnight provided tremendous clarity. I think given where we are now, I think it probably is advisable to use the time we have over the next 30 days to figure out who's on first and who's on second, and come back and have a clear and definitive posture in terms of what we're doing, what the city's doing by way of the application for the text amendment and of course the special use permit. So
yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioners, the motion is to defer to our regularly scheduled December meeting. All in favor, the motion was made by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Lovett. All in favor, sound aye.
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 All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The item is deferred to our regularly scheduled December meeting. Our next agenda item will be announcements. Staff, do you have any announcements that's good for the body?
Thanksgiving is Thursday, so have a happy holiday.
All right,
Uh,
thank you.
Happy holiday, everyone. Happy
Yes.
holiday.
Thank you all so much. I have no announcements. Commissioners, do you have any announcements? Okay, thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lovett, seconded by Commissioner McKnight that we adjourn. All in favor, sound aye.
Aye.
All opposed, sound nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your patience.
Aye.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Be safe, everybody.